October 9th. The high desert air is thin and cold. Below, the sand is a pale map under a bone-white moon. Inside the command bunker of the 35th Independent Air Defense Brigade, the air is stale, thick with the scent of ozone and boiled cabbage. This is the shield, a ring of steel and silicon, a gift from the Union to its desert ally. It is the most advanced integrated air defense system the Union has ever exported. The screens glow green. They show the geometric perfection of the system. 6 long-range radar installations feed data into a central processing hub. The hub assigns targets to 24 surface-to-air missile batteries, each a cluster of lethal claws ready to snatch intruders from the sky. The system is layered, redundant, and deep. It is a fortress of mathematics and high explosives. Its operators, trained for years in the Union's finest academies, are confident. They are untouchable. The first alert is a ghost. A flicker on the edge of the screen, a transient echo where nothing should be. The senior watch officer, a man whose face is a roadmap of boredom, leans forward. He taps the glass. The ghost vanishes. He grunts, blaming atmospheric clutter. A sandstorm over the far mountains. Solar flares. A flock of birds migrating at an impossible altitude. There is always an explanation. Then the ghost returns. It is not alone. A dozen phantoms dance on the edge of detection. They are too low, too slow. They do not behave like aircraft. They are more like whispers, electronic smudges that the system's powerful logic gates struggle to define. The operators exchange uneasy glances. The machine, this billion-ruble brain, is supposed to make sense of the sky. Instead, it is showing them riddles. A red light flashes. Proximity alert. A battery on the western perimeter, designated Site Gamma, reports an inbound threat. But the central command screen shows nothing. Absolutely nothing. The commander of Site Gamma is screaming into his radio. His voice is a raw nerve of panic. He sees it. He swears he sees it. But the network, the all-seeing eye of the entire brigade, is blind. The senior watch officer dismisses it. A faulty local radar. A panicked crew. He orders Gamma to run a diagnostic. The order is never acknowledged. A new light blinks on the main board. It is a small, unassuming icon. A white skull where the green symbol for Site Gamma used to be. The connection is severed. The battery is gone. Before a word can be spoken, another skull appears. Site Delta. Then another. Site Kilo. There is no warning. No high-speed radar track. No screech of a diving jet. Just a clean, methodical erasure. One by one, the green icons of the outer perimeter wink out of existence, replaced by the silent, mocking skulls. The fortress is being dismantled from the outside in. The room is a tomb of disbelief. Men stare at the screens, their minds refusing to process the information. They are under attack. A devastating, precise attack. But the attacker is invisible. The system, their shield, their god of the electronic spectrum, sees nothing. It hears nothing. It only reports the deaths of its own limbs, one after another. A young lieutenant, his face pale as chalk, points a trembling finger at a secondary display. It shows a feed from a low-light television camera mounted on a tower at the central command bunker. The camera is aimed at the horizon, towards Site Zulu, 5 kilometers away. As they watch, a brilliant, silent flower of orange and white blossoms in the darkness. The shockwave arrives seconds later, a physical punch that rattles the bunker's thick concrete walls. Another skull appears on the screen. Panic erupts. It is a virus of pure terror. The impossible is happening. They are being slaughtered by phantoms. The senior officer grabs his microphone, his voice cracking. He screams orders to the remaining batteries. Fire blind. Fire at anything. Fill the sky with steel. He needs to believe that brute force can answer a riddle. That a wall of explosions can stop a ghost. It cannot. The methodical erasure continues. The skulls multiply on the map, creeping closer to the center. The system is not just being defeated. It is being executed. The men in the bunker are not soldiers in a fight. They are witnesses to a dissection. They are watching a surgeon with invisible scalpels cut their world apart. They do not know what is happening. They only know that their technology, their doctrine, their entire understanding of warfare is a lie. They were wrong. They were profoundly, dangerously, and completely wrong. The incident in the southern desert is not an incident. It is a declaration. Back in the Union's capital, The after-action reports are read in silent, smoke-filled rooms by men with stony faces and chests heavy with medals. The reports are thin, filled with the frantic, contradictory testimony of the few survivors. They speak of silent fire from an empty sky, of weapons that seem to think, of an enemy who was never there. It is the language of madness. But the facts are undeniable. An entire advanced air defense brigade, the pride of their export portfolio, was annihilated in under 20 minutes. 36 missile launchers, 12 sophisticated radar systems, a central command and control node, and over 200 trained personnel were systematically erased. The cost of the lost hardware alone is staggering, enough to build 3 new cities. The cost in prestige is incalculable. This is more than a tactical defeat. It is a strategic crisis. The Union's entire military doctrine is built upon the concept of the integrated air defense system. From the frozen plains of Eastern Europe to the vital naval bases of the North, tens of thousands of missile batteries and radars are linked together in a vast, continental shield. This shield is meant to be their guarantee against the Republic's overwhelming air power. It is the foundation of their national security. And in a desert half a world away, that foundation was turned to dust. If one brigade can be dismantled with such contemptuous ease, all of them can. Every air defense commander across the Union now feels a cold dread seeping into his command post. His radars, once his eyes, are now just targets on an invisible enemy's map. His missiles, once his spears, are now just fragile monuments waiting for demolition. The shield is an illusion. The geopolitical impact is immediate and brutal. The Union's allies, who bought these systems for their own protection, are now terrified. Their ambassadors flood the foreign ministry with frantic cables. What is this new weapon? Do you have a defense against it? The Union has no answers. Its reputation as a purveyor of reliable, effective military hardware is shattered overnight. They sold their friends a shield made of glass. Now, the wolf is at the door, and the wolf is invisible. The crisis is also industrial. The military-industrial complex, a vast and powerful beast of factories and design bureaus, is thrown into turmoil. They had been building the world's best air defense systems. They were certain of it. Their systems were robust, powerful, and built to withstand the worst the Republic could throw at them. They measured success in megatons of warhead and megawatts of radar output. They built hammers to shatter enemy planes. But the enemy had not sent a plane. They had sent a ghost. Worse, the psychological deterioration among the forces is rapid. Rumors spread faster than any official report. They fly on the radio waves between isolated outposts. They are whispered in mess halls and barracks. The soldiers and officers on the front lines, the ones who must sit in those bunkers and watch those screens, start to create their own mythology for the new threat. They give it a name. They call it the Prizrakni Glas, the ghost eye. The ghost eye is not a weapon. It is a malevolent intelligence. It does not need a pilot. It sees everything. It can see through jamming. It can see through camouflage. It can see a single soldier smoking a cigarette from 30 kilometers away and decide to kill him. It does not miss. It cannot be stopped. It is the physical manifestation of the Republic's technological soul, silent, omniscient, and utterly without mercy. The fear is palpable. Radar operators start seeing phantoms on their screens everywhere. Maintenance crews triple-check their systems, looking for a flaw that would invite the ghost eye's attention. Pilots flying near the border zones report strange feelings of being watched, of being hunted by something they cannot see. The High Command issues directives against the spread of rumors, but it is useless. You cannot order men not to be afraid of the dark, especially when the dark has just proven it can kill you. The Union's military, a machine built on discipline and ideological certainty, is now infected with something far more dangerous than any weapon. It is infected with doubt. The Politburo demands answers. The order comes down from the very top, written on a piece of paper heavy with the fate of the nation. Find out what this weapon is. Find out how it works. And find a way to stop it. The full weight of the Union's intelligence and engineering apparatus is mobilized for a single purpose. The hunt for the ghost eye has begun. Special teams from the GRU, the Military Intelligence Directorate, are the first on the ground. They arrive in the desert nation under the cover of diplomatic immunity, their real purpose hidden behind a facade of technical assistance. They move through the wreckage of the 35th Brigade like priests tending to a tomb. The scale of the destruction is shocking. It is not the chaotic mess of a conventional bombing raid. It is clean, surgical. Each missile launcher is a mangled heap of metal, but the crater is centered perfectly on the vehicle's chassis. The command bunkers are not flattened. They are punctured. A single, precise hole is drilled through the thickest part of the reinforced concrete roof, the explosion happening inside, turning the shelter into a pressure cooker. Radar dishes are not merely damaged. They are systematically blinded, each waveguide and transmitter component shattered by a precise blast. This was not war. This was an assassination. The teams gather every scrap of metal they can find. They are looking for fragments of the weapon itself. It is a painstaking process, sifting through tons of debris under a merciless sun. They find slivers of a thin aluminum casing, shards of a guidance fin, but nothing substantial. The weapon seems to vaporize on impact, leaving behind only its effects. It is as if it is ashamed of its own body, leaving no corpse for an autopsy. The debriefings with the survivors are even more frustrating. The men are traumatized, their stories a jumble of fear and confusion. Some swear they heard a high-pitched whistle just before impact. Others heard nothing at all. A few claim to have seen a small, dark shape for a split second, no bigger than a man's arm, moving impossibly fast. No one saw a launch aircraft. No one saw a missile plume. The weapons simply arrived, as if materializing from thin air. The analysis of the Union's own sensor data deepens the mystery. The tapes from the surviving long-range radars are wiped clean. There are no inbound tracks. The system's own electronic warfare suites, designed to detect and classify enemy radar emissions, recorded nothing. The enemy did not use radar to guide these weapons. That much is clear. This rules out the Republic's entire inventory of known anti-radiation missiles. This is something new. Interrogations of captured enemy sympathizers and informants yield nothing. The local forces allied with the Republic are as mystified as the Union. They speak of a new weapon, a fire and forget, marvel that the Republic's pilots can launch from well outside the range of any air defense system. They call them long-range standoff munitions. They launch them and turn for home. The missile does the rest. But how? How does the missile do the rest? The GRU analysts in their sterile Moscow offices stare at the data until their eyes burn. The evidence is a collection of negatives. It is not radar-guided. It is not laser-guided, as no designator beams were detected. It is not command-guided, as there was no data link signal. It is not GPS-guided, as the satellite navigation system the Republic uses is known to be too imprecise for this kind of pinpoint accuracy. Every known method of guidance is systematically ruled out. The mystery becomes a vortex, pulling in more and more resources. The Union's best minds are put on the case. Physicists, aeronautical engineers, electronics specialists. They are given access to all the data. They are told to think the unthinkable. For weeks, they model, they simulate, they argue. The meetings are long and bitter. The pressure from the high command is immense. The physical evidence is almost a dead end. The few fragments they have are analyzed down to the molecular level. The metallurgy is standard aerospace aluminum. The explosive residue is a common composition. The only clue is in the guidance section fragments. They find microscopic traces of germanium and silicon and a piece of what looks like a finely ground lens. An optical seeker? A camera? This seems plausible, but it raises more questions than it answers. How could a simple television camera guide a weapon with such precision? In the dead of night? Against low-contrast targets like a camouflaged bunker? It would need a source of light or a level of contrast sensitivity that is beyond anything their own science can produce. The evidence does not make sense. It is a puzzle where every piece belongs to a different box. The ghost eye remains a phantom, its true nature hidden behind a wall of contradictions. Inside the research institutes of the Union's military-industrial complex, the analysts are trapped. They are trapped not by a lack of data, but by the rigidity of their own thinking. Their entire technological culture is based on brute force. Bigger rockets, more powerful radars, heavier armor. They solve problems by applying overwhelming power. The concept of a weapon that wins through subtlety, through pure information, is alien to their philosophy. Their attempts to explain the ghost eye are a reflection of this mindset. They are trying to fit a ghost into a machine they understand. The first theory, and the most popular among the senior generals, is that the Republic has developed a revolutionary new form of stealth aircraft. A bomber so invisible that it can fly directly over a target and drop a simple unguided bomb with perfect accuracy. This theory is comforting. It is a problem they understand. The solution is simply to build better radars that can see this new stealth. But the theory does not fit the facts. No wreckage of any stealth aircraft was found. No pilot would be skilled enough to hit dozens of separate targets with such precision in a single pass. And the survivors did not report the sound of a jet engine overhead. The theory is quietly shelved, a testament to wishful thinking. The next theory focuses on the weapon itself. The analysts fixate on the idea of a magic bullet. They believe the Republic has achieved a breakthrough in a single, specific technology, and if they can just identify that technology, they can counter it. This is the magic bullet fallacy. It blinds them to the truth. The truth is not a new component. It is a new system, a new way of thinking. Their leading hypothesis is born from the fragments of the lens. They conclude the Ghost Eye is a television-guided missile. In their minds, they picture a missile with a tiny television camera in its nose, beaming a live video feed back to an operator sitting safely in an aircraft miles away. This operator, like a god, watches the world through the missile's eye and steers it to its target with a joystick. This theory seems plausible. It explains the precision. It explains the lack of a guidance signal from the ground. The data link would be from the weapon back to the launch platform, a signal they were not equipped to detect. It is a terrifying thought. An army of remote-controlled killers, steered by human hands. It is a perversion of warfare they find both impressive and morally repugnant. Based on this flawed conclusion, a massive effort is launched. Design bureaus are ordered to develop powerful electronic jammers. The goal is to create a bubble of electromagnetic noise so dense that it can sever the missile's video feed. If the operator loses his picture, the missile goes blind. Huge resources are poured into this project. Prototypes are rushed to the field. The countermeasures are a catastrophic failure. During a live-fire test in a remote desert range, a new jamming system is activated against a captured Republic drone they have modified to simulate the Ghost Eye's presumed data link. As the drone approaches, the jamming array bathes the sky in megawatts of energy. It has no effect. The next generation of real Ghost Eye missiles, used in a subsequent border skirmish, performs just as flawlessly as the first. The jammers are not only ineffective, they are giant electronic beacons, screaming, "Here I am," making them the first targets to be destroyed. The attempt to blind the Ghost Eye only makes its job easier. Other theories are debated in hushed tones. Some of the more imaginative engineers propose a direct mind-machine interface, a pilot who can literally see through the missile's seeker and guide it with his thoughts. This is dismissed as science fiction. Others suggest a new type of ammunition, a warhead that can somehow steer itself in the final moments of flight using an unknown physical principle. This too is rejected for lack of evidence. A few even whisper about a new material, an armor so advanced it renders the Republic's aircraft invisible and invulnerable. Each of these theories shares a common flaw. They are all attempts to explain the Ghost Eye's performance by inventing a single, miraculous piece of hardware. A better camera, a better jammer, a better engine. They cannot grasp the truth. The truth is not in the hardware. The microchip had defeated the smokestack. The real revolution was happening in the realm of pure information. The Union's engineers are like medieval armorers trying to understand a rifle. They see the hole in the armor plate, and they assume the enemy has a stronger crossbow. They cannot conceive of gunpowder. They are intellectually and industrially unprepared for the leap in logic that the Ghost Eye represents. They are hunting for a phantom in their own minds, a phantom shaped by their own limitations. Their flawed investigation leads them down a dozen dead ends, wasting precious time and resources, while the real threat continues to watch them from the silent, digital sky. While the Union's finest minds chase phantoms in the desert, the answer is being assembled in a place that could not be more different. It is not a secret underground bunker or a fortified military base. It is a brightly lit, sterile cleanroom in a corporate park in a sun-drenched southern state of the Republic. Here, men and women in white bunny suits move with quiet precision, tending to machines that hum with the sound of the future. The origin of the Ghost Eye is not a weapon. It is a microchip. Specifically, it is a charge-coupled device, or CCD. It began not as a military project, but as a civilian effort to create digital cameras. The scientists and engineers working on it were not trying to build a better bomb. They were trying to capture light. They were trying to turn photons into numbers. For years, this technology was a laboratory curiosity. The early CCDs were crude. They were insensitive. They had only a few dozen pixels. But a small group of thinkers within the Republic's Advanced Research Projects Agency saw the potential. They asked a simple, transformative question. What if a machine could see the world not as a picture, but as a grid of numbers? This question was the spark. The engineers realized that if you could convert a visual scene into digital data, you could do things that were impossible with a simple television camera. You could store that data. You could compare it. You could write algorithms to recognize patterns within it. You could give a machine a memory of what a place was supposed to look like. The core innovation was not the sensor itself, but what they did with the data it produced. They combined the emerging science of solid-state imaging with the explosive growth of microprocessing power. They created a system, a weapon that was more computer than explosive. This was the philosophical leap the Union could not make. They were still thinking about guidance. The Republic was thinking about recognition. The design philosophy was radical. Instead of a live video feed, which was vulnerable to jamming, the Ghost Eye was designed to be autonomous. It was given its mission before it was even loaded onto the aircraft. Intelligence analysts would take a high-resolution satellite photograph of a target area. They would identify the specific target, a command bunker, a radar dish, a fuel depot. This target image was then converted into a digital file, a heat map of expected infrared signatures. This file, this digital memory of the target, was loaded into the missile's brain. This brain was a marvel of miniaturization, a dense package of microprocessors that held more computing power than the Union's largest mainframe computer from a decade earlier. The missile was launched from dozens of kilometers away, flying on a simple inertial guidance path. It was blind for most of its journey. Only in the final seconds of its flight did the Ghost Eye open its eye. Its seeker was not a camera in the traditional sense. It was an imaging infrared sensor, a focal plane array that could see the world in gradients of heat. It did not need daylight. It could see the heat signature of a tank engine that had been turned off for an hour. It could see the subtle temperature difference between a concrete bunker and the surrounding sand. It saw the world as a glowing tapestry of thermal energy. This is how it performed its magic. The missile's onboard computer would take a snapshot of the thermal scene in front of it. It would then compare this live snapshot to the digital target map stored in its memory. It was a simple, brutal process of pattern matching. The computer would shift and rotate the live image, looking for a match with the stored image. It was a hawk trying to catch a rat in a burrow, not by seeing the rat, but by knowing the exact shape of the burrow's entrance. When the two images aligned, the computer knew it had found the target. It would then calculate the final, minute adjustments to the missile's control fins. The process took milliseconds. There was no human in the loop, no radio signals to jam. The missile was not being guided. It was having a moment of recognition. It was a laser beam of heavy metal, driven by a single, unchangeable memory. This was the secret. The Ghost Eye was not a weapon with a clever sensor. It was a flying computer that used a sensor as one of its peripherals. It was a system, and it was a system the Union was utterly incapable of conceiving, let alone building. The breakthrough for the Union comes not from a flash of analytical genius, but from a simple mechanical failure. In a skirmish over a contested mountain pass, a Republic fighter jet is damaged by ground fire. In its attempt to escape, the pilot jettisons his munitions to gain speed and altitude. Two Ghost Eye missiles, their systems not yet fully armed, tumble from their pylons and fall into a remote, snow-covered valley. They do not explode. They are duds. A frantic search is launched. Special forces teams are airlifted into the treacherous terrain. For 2 weeks, they battle freezing temperatures and enemy patrols. Finally, a scout stumbles upon it. A sleek, dark cylinder, half buried in a snowdrift, its body miraculously intact. The recovery is a masterpiece of stealth and engineering. The missile is carefully packaged and flown by a series of clandestine transports back to a top-secret research facility deep inside the Union. The moment of confrontation with the truth arrives. The Union's top engineers gather in a shielded laboratory. The atmosphere is electric with anticipation and dread. For months, they have been hunting a ghost. Now, the ghost's body is lying on their operating table. They are about to perform the autopsy. The chief designer, a man who has built entire generations of the Union's own missiles, personally oversees the disassembly. His hands, accustomed to heavy steel and powerful hydraulics, are surprisingly delicate as he works on the weapon's small, precise access panels. He is expecting to find a complex television receiver. He is expecting to find the hardware for a sophisticated data link. He is prepared to be impressed by the Republic's engineering. He is not prepared for what he actually finds. He removes the nose cone. There is no complex gimbaled camera system. There is only a small, fixed germanium window. Behind it, not a vacuum tube, but a flat, square chip of silicon mounted on a thermoelectric cooler. It is the imaging infrared sensor. It is elegant, simple, and utterly solid state. There are no moving parts. The first layer of shock is technological. They have this. This level of solid-state sensor technology is at least 15 years ahead of their own. Then they open the main guidance bay. The chief designer stops. He stares into the missile's gut. The other engineers crowd around, peering over his shoulder. The room falls silent. There is no radio receiver. There are no bulky analog processors. Instead, the entire cavity is filled with a dense, three-dimensional lattice of printed circuit boards. Each board is packed with dozens of small, black ceramic squares. Microchips. Hundreds of them. The wiring is a masterpiece of precision, a spiderweb of gold and copper so dense it looks like it was woven, not soldered. This is the second, deeper layer of shock. The industrial shock. "We can't build this," the words are whispered by a young engineer, his voice filled with a sickening awe. He is right. They cannot. Their own electronics industry is years behind. Their factories produce chips with a feature size measured in micrometers. These chips are clearly in the submicron range. They lack the photolithography equipment. They lack the cleanroom facilities. They lack the fundamental industrial base to even attempt to replicate this density of computing power. The chief designer orders a technician to try and interface with the chips, to read the code stored in their memory. The attempt is a failure. Their own diagnostic equipment is too crude. They are trying to perform brain surgery with a hammer and chisel. The code, the missile's soul, remains locked away, a silent testament to their inferiority. The box does it, but they cannot understand how. The third layer of shock is the most profound. It is the philosophical shock. The realization that their entire investigation, their entire framework for understanding the problem, was wrong. They were looking for a better radio. The Republic had built a better brain. They were focused on the link between the weapon and its operator. The Republic had severed that link entirely, creating a truly autonomous weapon. They were not even thinking about this problem correctly. An order comes from the top. It is an order born of desperation and political fury. Copy it. Copy it screw for screw. It is a command that seals the fate of their industry. For the next decade, the Union's best and brightest are not tasked with innovation. They are tasked with imitation. An entire research city is dedicated to the futile task of reverse engineering the Ghost Eye. The attempt is a slow-motion catastrophe. They manage to replicate the missile's airframe. They can build a rocket motor that matches its performance. But the heart of the weapon, its electronic brain and its solid-state eye, remains beyond their grasp. They can copy the shape of the microchips, but they cannot replicate the intricate logic gates etched into their silicon soul. Their copies are larger, heavier, and consume 10 times the power. The missile they build is a clumsy, overweight mockery of the original. A scarecrow dressed in a soldier's uniform. The attempt to copy the hardware without understanding the underlying software, doctrine, and industrial philosophy is a humiliating, expensive failure. The Ghost has defeated them, not just on the battlefield, but in the laboratory as well. The final scorecard is written in blood and treasure. In the various proxy conflicts of the era, the exchange ratios are brutally lopsided. For every Republic aircraft lost, the Union and its allies lose dozens of tanks, hundreds of artillery pieces, and entire air defense networks. The Ghost Eye and its descendants rewrite the rules of ground warfare. They allow air power to reach out and touch any target on the battlefield at any time with near-perfect impunity. The age of the massed armored column, the cornerstone of Union military doctrine, is over. A tank is no longer a fortress. It is a target. The macro impact is a quiet, steady bleed. The Union is forced into an arms race it cannot win. It is competing not just against a weapon, but against an entire economic and technological system. To counter the Ghost Eye, they must invest billions in new radars, new jammers, new interceptor missiles. Most of these countermeasures are ineffective. They are attempts to solve a software problem with hardware solutions. The Republic, meanwhile, improves its weapons not by building new factories, but by writing better code. An upgrade to the Ghost Eye's targeting algorithm, distributed on a floppy disk, can double its effectiveness overnight. The Union must build a whole new missile. This asymmetry is economically devastating. The command economy of the Union, with its centralized control and 5-year plans, is too slow and too rigid to compete. It is optimized for producing vast quantities of steel, not for fostering the decentralized innovation required for the microelectronics revolution. The Republic's system, a chaotic but dynamic ecosystem of universities, startups, and corporate research labs, is built for this new kind of warfare. The Union is bringing a sword to a gunfight. It is bringing a smokestack to fight a microchip. The systemic flaw, the root cause of the Union's failure, is now laid bare. It was not a lack of courage in their soldiers or a lack of genius in their engineers. It was a failure of philosophy. They believed that quantity had a quality all its own. They built thousands of tanks and missiles, believing that sheer mass could overwhelm the enemy. But the Ghost Eye proved that a single, intelligent weapon could be more valuable than 100 dumb ones. It proved that information dominance was more powerful than brute force. They were trapped in a paradigm of imitation versus innovation, of centralized control versus decentralized empowerment. They chose imitation and control, and it led them to ruin. The legacy of the Ghost Eye is profound. It marks the true beginning of the information age in warfare. It is the ancestor of every smart bomb, every cruise missile, every autonomous drone that defines the modern battlefield. It was the weapon that proved that the decisive terrain was no longer a hill or a river. It was the electromagnetic spectrum. It taught a brutal lesson. The future of conflict would be decided not by the nation with the biggest armies, but by the nation with the fastest computers. The Union never caught up. The technological gap, revealed in a flash of light over a forgotten desert, only widened over time. The effort to match the Republic's electronics bankrupted their economy and hollowed out their military. They were a superpower with feet of clay, a mighty facade of tanks and rockets built upon a crumbling foundation of outdated technology. The silent, thinking missile did not just destroy a few radar sites. It exposed the fatal weakness at the very heart of the Union, accelerating its journey into the dustbin of history. The machine does not crash. It writes itself, and in the end, it wrote their obituary.